the first expanded college football playoff. The dream has been realized, but there is no shortage of discontentedness out there. So before these games get underway finally, and perhaps make some of these issues moot, is this the way it should be, Nicole?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, part of the reason that we all deal with and put up with everything that happens off the field, and we can certainly complain about seeding and rankings and how this thing is structured, but we put up with all of that to have great games. And the expanded college football playoff is giving us more meaningful games down the stretch in the regular season. And now we have these amazing games that are still to be played, including games on campus, which is where college football belongs. So yes, I think it is already working as intended.
Paul?
Yeah, I mean, we can find a million faults with the system. We just don't have the time or the desire. But it is progress, because I've been around long enough to remember when there was a debate between fan bases who number one was, because you had different polls with different meaning. We've come so far from those dark days that I think we ought to celebrate this week. As flawed as it is, we are getting a legitimate playoff, unlike anything we have ever seen before, with road games, with campus games, with cold weather games, and most important, meaningful games.
The regular season this year was the best since 2007. And let's not take for granted the fact that the 4 games we have to start the first 12-team college playoff, South Bend, Indiana, the Horseshoe, Austin, Texas, and Happy Valley. I mean, those 4 are on anyone's lists of must-have to go to college campuses. So that's as good an opening weekend. I realize Alabama fans don't want to hear this, and South Carolina fans don't want to hear this, but starting the playoff in those 4 venues is something that you would have written up in a fantasy scenario.
Josh?
What Ryan said there is the key for me. The regular season was, by many accounts, mine included, the best regular season that we've probably seen since 07. I thought the 2021 regular season was really good as well. I'm a little bit different than most people. I'm in the minority on this because I'm a regular season guy first and foremost. Like, as long as you give me my fall Saturdays, anything at the end of it, it's a caboose for me. It's icing on the cake. I don't think playoff centric. So I love it. Like, I love that we go home campuses. We finally get to test the cold weather playoff theory in college football. And way too much is going to be made of the first iteration of this as it relates to playing in cold weather. But I love it. Love the home factor especially. You give me my fall Saturdays and everything else is gravy for me.
Yeah, Josh, by the way, I got to go to Columbus. Yeah, I was going to say, Jeremy, I got to go to Columbus. So I appreciate what Josh is saying, but I'm going to test the fall cold weather. And we'll see how that goes.
We've been talking about this for a long, long time. So when we talk about, kinks that have to be worked out, seeding challenges, is it really the best way to go with those conference champions, getting the buys? What would you like to see change, Paul?
Well, certainly the seeding has to change, Jeremy. And while Ryan may be going to Columbus, I'm still disappointed. I'm going to Austin, where it's only going to be 66. I was hoping more for 76. Sorry, Ryan. I'll have to carry my own bags. But my point being, Jeremy, Boise State and Arizona State should not have a bye. I don't mean to sound elitist, even though I work in the SEC primarily. We tend to wear that on our sleeves, but they will. After they reboot this thing for 26, it will be a more even-keeled system where a school like Oregon, who's the #1 seed, has a rougher path than perhaps Penn State or someone else. But, I mean, we are quibbling. The fact that we're going to have some amazing matchups, not only in this round, but in the next round. We have the possibility of Georgia and Notre Dame. Those two have played a few times in meaningful games as recently as 1980 for the national championship when Herschel Walker was just a freshman.
I would love to see them fix this in time for next season. When you talk about the seeding issues, there should be no world where the #1 overall seed has a tougher path than somebody else in the bracket. Like, that's how brackets work. And you're supposed to be incentivized to be the #1 overall seed. You shouldn't have an argument that the loser of the Big Ten championship game has a better path than the winner of the Big Ten championship game. I think the rankings being different than the seeding was very confusing to a lot of fans. I think that, it kind of bumped teams down that should have been ranked third and fourth overall. And so it affected the seeding for the teams that drew them in the bracket. And that's just what's not fair. But again, to Paul's point, we are quibbling. The fact that the big argument about snubs and inclusion in that final Selection Sunday was about one team means that the size of the bracket probably was right. The rest of the teams, most people agreed on, and it was just a question of seeding. So I think you can fix that and either just go 1 through 12 and include the 5 conference champions in there, or reseed after the first round. But again, that is a small fix. I think it's something that is easy to fix as well.
I'll tell you something else, Nicole. You talked about the fans being a little confused, and I think that was readily apparent to the four of us once we got closer to Selection Sunday. Another thing that the messaging was probably a little poor on was why the playoff had to be constructed this way to begin with. It's very easy, for me to sit here and yell in this microphone, I hate that there are first-round buys for conference champs only, which I do. But I also, and anyone else who disagrees with it needs to understand, we're probably headed towards a more fixed version of this. But number two, you weren't getting your expanded playoff without the sign-off from all of those powers that be, all of those conference commissioners. And to get the sign-off, you had to have auto-inclusion. It was a non-negotiable, as you well know, as everyone here well knows, for a lot of these folks to sign on the dotted line. I'm sure we'll fix this in a couple of years, but if you're a fan of the expanded playoff, probably just clasp your hands together right now and thank the good Lord above you've got it, and then ... Whatever comes after the ellipsis comes a couple of years from now, but hey, at least we got it.
And I'll say this too, you mentioned first-round buys. I don't like it. That's very NFL to me. And I say it so much that I've been told to quit saying it, but I'll say it anyway, Jeremy. I like my Saturday football to look like Saturday, and I like my Sunday football to look like Sunday. And a first-round bye is just very NFL. I grew up on Division II, what we used to call 1AA, now FCS campuses. And those brackets, for the most part, until recent years, were 16-team brackets. Everyone had to play the same number of games. And, it's enough of a benefit. It's enough of starting on first base, if you are a number 1 seed and you're hosting a home game in the first round. I don't like the fact that we have buys. I like it to be evenly divisible. I like 4. I like 8. I like 16. I think more than that's too much because the 17th team, honestly, whatever, dude, you're 17th. You don't really have an argument at this point. But 16, I'm not good at math. Maybe that's what it is, Jeremy. I just like everything to be evenly divisible.
I might turn